Yes, welcome to the No State Project live from my fortified compound here in Mesa, Arizona. If I get it right, I think it's December 18th, 2019. Actually, quite a day today. It is impeachment day. So it looks like finally somebody who has had no accountability his entire life, all 73 years, never being held accountable for a damn thing he's ever done, like grabbing women by the crotch. Well, he may never not see prison because of this, but he's getting impeached. So all those stupid memes about all the blustering that no one's ever going to hold a man accountable. Yeah, he's at least going to be the third president in American history to be impeached. So that's always that is a good thing. It is impeachment day. So happy impeachment day, everybody. We'll talk more about that, I guess, on the Saturday show. But I do appreciate everyone supporting the show. If you want to help support the big show, it is markstevens.net and markstevens.cells.com. We'll start getting people actually filing in here. I guess they didn't know what I was talking about to then back out. So nobody wants to hear about impeachment day. All right, I understand it. Got a lot of stuff to get to today. I forgot to put the number into the chat. So if somebody can do that for me, if you want to join me here on the big show, it's 218-632-9399. 218-632-9399. The passcode is 2020 with the pound sign or the hashtag. And that'll get you in. You can also reach me on Skype. It is Frank Rizzo 3. Frank Rizzo with the number 3. Instant message me first. I will routinely check my Skype to see if I get a notification over there. Actually, did the call yesterday, and thanks, Verbal. We'll get that up there. Kind of disturbing. Critics, they come and go, and then occasionally you get these that just like a thorn in your behind. You just can't, like if you're a fat guy, you just can't seem to get it, and it's there, and it's just a part of doing anything publicly. And I don't mind having critics. I don't mind dissent. In fact, if you disagree with what I say on the show, I would say you're more than happy. And the idea that you're not good at public speaking. Well, as long as you can pick up the phone and have a conversation, that's all that's required to join me. This is YouTube. I don't have a very large platform. It's not a big channel, so I really don't buy this thing. Well, I'm not good at public speaking. Well, can you use a phone? You're just having a conversation with a regular guy, whatever regular is supposed to mean today. But when critics lie, when there are lies about you, you probably should respond to those. And that's why certain people, why one of my yardsticks is for blocking somebody on my channel or on my website, my forum. If you lie about my work and I've pointed out and I've corrected you and you continue to lie, well, that's not dissent. That's just, and I don't have, again, you can call the show and, I don't block any, well, I'll get to blocking people from the show. But consistently lying about my work, and I'm going to go through this. I just actually, I went through and against my best judgment, and I had another conversation with Juan Galt. And I wanted to get something up quickly, because just in the first 2 minutes, you can see how the rest of the conversation is going to go with this guy. He doesn't lie about something big. He lies about something really small. And you got to wonder, why would he lie about that? So I put the video up, and I have in the thumbnail, and I have in the actual video, is Juan Galt lying, or does he just have a bad memory? Now, I made reference to the bad memory on the call yesterday, because from what he did say, he is quite a bit older than me. And hey, and I'm not 30 years old anymore. So I guess you can see that there. So, but he look, I thought the whole thing was going to be a waste of time, but I figured I would do it because I didn't want anyone thinking that I back down from criticism, because I don't. And now we've got even more evidence to that. Now, I've got enough evidence that I shouldn't have to defend. So I probably shouldn't have done the call at all. But turns out I got some really good evidence that people can make up their own mind just how damn dishonest this guy is. So if you after the show, you can go. It's only 2 minutes long, and I didn't want to waste time. I wanted to know if he was just going to give me the same tired argument that I've heard for years, and I've addressed it hundreds of times. I may not be addressing him directly, but he does have somebody who keeps parroting the same exact. This one, we all know who it is, and they don't have an original argument. Not that that's really something to rail against. But it's the same arguments that Juan Galt puts forth. There's nothing original there. It's Juan Galt does it, and they just Juan Galt said. And I asked him if we were going to be covering any new ground, or is it the same argument? Well, he denied multiple times, and I gave him 3 or 4 opportunities to tell the truth. And each time he denied that he had ever made that argument with me publicly. Well, you can see in the video, and I will post the entire video with the unedited audio. I will do that. I did a private stream as I was doing the conversation with him. So if I'm accused of editing, which I think we all know here, I'm no editor. But if I am falsely accused of editing to make it look bad, I will release, all I have to do is just one little thing. I go from private to public. You can get the entire stream unedited. But I have the documentation. I have right from the forum that this is a very old argument that he has presented. Now, I'm not going to go through and get every single example from the forum. I provide the link and everybody can look for themselves. And you look for yourself. So, yeah, all right. Cop Block Hot Springs is saying, you demonstrating Juan Galt is stupid equals priceless. Having to listen to Juan himself, torture. I had to listen to him for 40 minutes. So it is brutal speaking to him. Now, the dishonesty yesterday and lying, saying that I didn't answer his questions. That's bad. That's indicative of somebody, and their motive. It goes to them as a personality. So you have to ask yourself, why is somebody who's one of the most successful lawyers, apparently, who graduated Yale Law School, I believe that's what was said, Yale Law School, in his late 60s, early 70s, who had this unbelievably successful career. Why would they hang on the words of someone from Long Island who averages 1,000 views? Why hang on my words? What motivates him? Why would someone so wealthy focus so much attention on me for years, nonstop for years? Is he really a Harvard law grad? I mean, a Yale law grad? Is he really who he says? I don't know. To me, it just doesn't add up. Why I'm such a focus of this guy? So it's one thing to lie, and everybody can make up their own mind. I think the guy's dishonest as the day is long, and I've got the evidence to prove it. So you can either accept the evidence or not. I'm sure we're going to have our resident troll here who's going to say, I'm taking it out of context, or that, that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how many times he lies. But what I saw, thank you, Stahl, what I had to see on Skype, again, Stahl pointed this out. It's one thing, lying is bad enough. But you really want to get into the mindset of how of this guy's mind. He posted a video of a tragedy, something that affected me deeply. And I talked about it on the show, and I didn't really give many details. All just that an innocent woman was killed, murdered And this guy, in an effort to discredit me, posts the video saying, woman shot by barricaded gunmen in St. Clair Shores describes terror. And this, of course, is Tom. And the title of the video is Marc Stevens, in all caps, his devout follower and student. This is a level of depravity in order to discredit me that has to be obvious to even someone who supports him that this is crossing a line. This is absolutely despicable. It doesn't matter that he was blocked from the show several times. It doesn't matter that I butted heads with him on almost every subject other than a very limited scope about court procedure. Everything else I pretty much disagree with the guy on, and he was banned for being a racist prick. And to try to somehow draw a line between Tom's murderous racist rampage, and somehow draw a connection to me, says more about this character, Juan Galt, than it does me. This is disgraceful. What Tom did had nothing to do based on what he learned from me. But this is the level that this man will go to. Marc Stevens, his devout follower and student. No. Yeah, he called a show. You're going to find that I'm somehow responsible for his murderous, racist rampage because he called into my show? And you call yourself a brilliant, you're this fantastic lawyer? Is that what your law school education does? So if you have a client who's convicted of possessing child pornography, does that mean that somehow is an indictment against you? This is absolutely beyond the pale. And this is what you expect from someone like Juan Galt. This is absolutely disgraceful. Yeah, someone's saying here, a typical scumbag lawyer. Now, I'm not going to, I'll describe the behavior, but I'm not going to insult him like he does to me. This is the level. You're that desperate to discredit me that you'll post something out that this massive non sequitur. Now, to anybody listening to the show, and you go back in the archives, you can hear that I disagree with him and even cut him off the show and even blocked him a few times. Yeah, it was probably poor judgment because he sobered up and wasn't discussing that stuff again. But then when he got back into it, I disagree with it. So this is your hero, our resident troll. I don't see them here now. See them justify that. And at least some people look like they were trying to call him out. Hey, I'm just putting it up there. You can make up your own mind. Yeah, that's really honest. So aside from the disgusting dishonesty that he exhibited in that 40-minute call, which I will get the whole thing posted, he actually goes out and tries to say and draw some kind of relationship there between me and a caller to the show. Unbelievable. Disgraceful. Just absolutely despicable behavior. And that's enough on that. I can't even begin to fathom the hatred somebody has for me, that instead of just addressing the damn argument and being honest, he does something like this. And so that's what we'll hear in the call tomorrow. I answer his questions and he lies and says that I didn't. And yet through the entire call, he doesn't answer the questions. He's condescending. He's arrogant. And a typical tactic that this lawyer has. That's why he may actually be a lawyer. Well, I'll give him that. He may actually be a lawyer. So verbal armor, Juan is infatuated with you. Well, I don't know if it's infatuation, but it's certainly he's obsessed. This is unhealthy. I mean, you got people like Wes Serra, where he'll do a drive-by. He doesn't focus his entire adult life in retirement with all his money. Wes Serra, he doesn't like me. He disagrees with me, but he doesn't comment incessantly. He doesn't have someone posting his same arguments on every single show. So I would say it's more of an obsession and infatuation. So we can, if he is a lawyer, he's employing a very standard lawyer trick. So let me talk about that. You ask him a question directly, and the question requires a yes or no answer. And it's not that I'm demanding a yes or no answer, but that's common courtesy. That's when you're speaking to somebody and they ask you a yes or no question, the common courtesy there, the most basic social aspect is to answer the question. We're having a discussion on a particular legal issue. And when you ask a question, look, yes or no, and you go into a discourse. So that's what Juan does. So when you ask him a question directly, he won't answer you. He'll go into a long discourse. So an example is, I asked him, would it be fair for the prosecution to make an argument, a claim that I can't challenge? So instead of answering the question, he rambles on about me that I can challenge it. I'm like, that's not the question. The question is it fair if I'm not allowed to do that? Oh, but you can challenge. That's not the question. So instead of answering the question directly so that it advances the argument, so it advances the discussion, he goes into a discourse. So it makes it sound like he's answering the question, but he's not. And so this is one of the dishonest tactics that he uses. So we have another 40-minute audio evidence showing very clearly Juan Galt, when asked a direct question, typically doesn't answer. So then he'll say that I just didn't understand. Well, the question required a yes or no. That's what I'm looking for. It's not that I didn't understand what you said. It's you're not being responsive. And it's that same tactic that bureaucrats use when they say, well, nothing I say will convince you. Look, I didn't say that you were retarded. Don't give me a backhanded, insult either. Okay. Extend me the same courtesy. And one of the things I realized was that if I can't worry so much about this and I can't just keep responding to the same claim over and over and over and over again. And then it hit me that if there are people going on the internet here and they're looking at my videos and they're looking at Juan Galt's, if people can't see through his tactics, if you can't see that he's not addressing the issue, if you can't see he's cherry picking, if you can't see that he's making a bad argument, if you can't see he's lying, then you really aren't somebody who should put their life in further jeopardy and try to defend yourself in court. Because one of the prerequisites here is you have to be able to recognize a bad argument when you hear it. That's someone saying deflection is not good. So why do you do it, Mark? Where am I deflecting anything? Call the show and give me or put it in the chat there exactly where I'm deflecting something with Juan Galt. Well, someone's saying 12 doesn't. Don't let him get to you too much. What gets to me is not that he lied. Okay, I get that and I accept it. That's just the way he is. What gets to me though, and I think this would affect anybody, is when he's trying to draw some kind of causation between me and Tom's murderous racist rampage. That is just that. And so like I mentioned before, 12, it gets to this idea, that there are some people that are just obsessed and to a point of it's just creepy. And the desperation and to know that there's somebody that hates you to such a degree and dislikes your work so much that in their obsession to discredit you, instead of just addressing the argument head on, they smear you like this. So anybody who's out there saying, oh, don't take it so serious, or don't take it, to have that done to you publicly, especially when it involves somebody that you worked with. And I'm talking about the murder victim here, not just Tom or not. Okay. That's just a level of, that's really just so, you don't have to be sub to his channel to watch the videos. So again, anybody who's watching the video, if they can't see through his argument, it's not somebody that should be defending themselves in court anyway. These people, people like that, for whatever reason, you got to have a lawyer because you can't speak for yourself, because you can't recognize a bad argument. And I'm not saying I'm the best at it, but I think I got a pretty good track record. And I think when you hear another conversation with him, you'll recognize and you'll hear what happens when you have someone who's dishonest like Juan Galt, and you're trying to get move the discussion. If you don't accept his non-responsive answers, and now I wouldn't say insist, but you ask for a responsive yes or no, you'll hear what happens. He gets enraged. So it's similar to with bureaucrats. And before I go to a call, I want to point out, and this is something that he would not address yesterday, what I do and what I recommend, what I recommend, like if I'm in that situation. So if people are calling and with, for how they should defend themselves, and I start talking about tools, and I'm not saying to do this or not do that, except make your court dates on time. I go and I explain the reason why we're doing this is because we're saying the process isn't fair. That's the basis. That's the okay. So one of the things I mentioned on the call yesterday was it's not fair that to quote the Supreme Court, it offends traditional notions of fair play and substantial justice. So that's a broad statement. So if there's not something spelled out in a court case that is that it's unfair, but it happens, and you can get the judge to agree that yes, this is unfair, you got yourself a due process violation. So if you can show that it offends traditional notions of fair play and substantial justice, yeah, you got yourself a due process violation, which says due process, it's fundamental fairness. And as I've mentioned in other videos, we're looking at it from a standpoint of a skeptic, that what's important is that we're not going to be judging the actions of the organization, whether they're right or wrong or fair or unfair, using just the lens of their rules. Now, that's not something that Juan wants to accept. I still spoke for 40 minutes, but this is why I do what I'm doing, because it's fundamentally unfair. Not that it's necessarily spelled out like a denial of effective cross, but it's unfair. And that is by showing that you can't challenge certain things, or the prosecutor is able to make a claim, a foundational claim, and you without evidence, and you can't do that either. So that's the basis of what I do. That underlies really all of it. And to not want to discuss that in the context of whether the proceeding is fair or not, I think that's disingenuous. But that's just, his argument is we can only look at it through their rules. And I disagree with that. And I explain why. That even if you say it is we can even say it's by their rules, because it offends traditional notions of fair play and substantial justice, because it's not fair. And so that's not something he wanted to get into. And I understand you can't maintain your position. He can't maintain his argument otherwise. So what you do is you deflect and you just dance around the issue, and you make it sound like you're answering, but you're not. So that's why I recommend when you're going into court, you always want to use leading questions. And one of the best parts about that, in my view, for us lay people, is it makes it easy for us to know whether we're getting a responsive answer or not. It's just yes or no. And now some questions, like I objected to the substance of the question, and I told them that, and we had a discussion. I didn't just make it I don't like this question. It makes my argument look really bad. So I'm just going to go into a legal discourse, and I'm going to make it look like no. So I'll get to the call here. Just please know that it's very important for us to be looking at this as a skeptic, and that everything they're saying is a lie. And we have to understand basic logic so that we can understand or recognize when somebody's making a bad argument. That is critically important. And if you cannot recognize a bad argument, you're not going to be able to effectively defend yourself. That's just the way I see things. I mean, some lawyer may say, well, no, you don't have to have any argument skills at all, and you can still be successful in court arguing. That's just not a position that I'm willing to take because it doesn't make any sense. So anyway, see if we get sense of things here. We got area code 321. You're live on the No State Project. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Marc, it's Paul here in Florida.
Paul in Florida. How you doing today?
Doing well. Last week was my trial. I told you I got the judge to admit that she didn't have jurisdiction, or that she was assuming jurisdiction.
Right.
So again, she admitted that. We went through the sham of the trial, and she still found me guilty, of course. What's the process for appeal if I want to do it? I'm not really familiar with it, so. Hello?
Oh, well, that was my fault. Before we get into the details of what happened, because I want to know what led up to that so we can talk about possible appealable issues, if you even have any. So we don't know yet. To get it started, all you do is a notice of appeal. So for those listening, it is just a notice. All you're saying is that after being found guilty in the justice court, appeal is taken to the superior. That's all it is. There's no argument in a notice of appeal. So now that we've got that out of the way, and I can send you a template for that. You also have what's called post-conviction relief if it was criminal, and I'm happy to send you a template for that also. But give us some of the details so that we can determine if you have any appealable issues.
Okay, so this, and again, you and I had gone back and forth several times with email just last week. I filed that writ of mandamus you gave me, but I filed it only 2 days in advance, so it never got processed in time to take effect, so I couldn't issue a summons to the judge. But this has been ongoing. It was a so-called driving without a license. It was almost 2 years. I got the first two judges recused themselves, and this judge would not recuse herself. And so we ended up going to trial. I don't know how much detail you want. You did have some of the details in the emails we went back and forth with.
Yeah, but we're live on the show, and so people can I like,
Okay.
Everybody would like, should be able to hear.
Well, I mean, in this latest trial last week, I basically just stuck to your basics. I kept going back and forth because, again, they never give you a straight answer. So when I asked if the law, where is there evidence that the law applied to me, even when I can go through what I did when I was questioning the police officer when he was on the stand. But I started the trial by objecting because I had not entered a plea, and I said, "Did I enter a plea? When did that happen?" And again, I never really got an answer there. And so I said, I object for I don't want to proceed. She said, "Well, proceeding anyhow, of course." Well,
you didn't give a reason.
I asked the question again.
I'm sorry, but you got to, when you make an objection, you got to give a reason other than I don't want to proceed. You got to give a reason why. I mean, the reason could be the prosecution hasn't met their prima facie burden to prove personal and subject matter jurisdiction. And I do want to point out, we're not going into court and saying, is there evidence the laws apply? We want to say, does the prosecution have evidence to support their claim that the laws apply just because I'm physically in Florida? So remember, that's it's not making it some kind of magical, it's all going to go away, but we have to frame our question correctly in order to get the right answer. And if we're not framing the question right, then they can argue that, hey, the way he, look, that's what lawyers do. Just like, remember Bill Clinton, it depends on what the definition of is. And so that's why we want to be very precise in our language, in our objection, and our question. So again, it is not, does the prosecution have evidence proving the laws apply? It's, does the prosecution have evidence to support their claim or their allegation that they do just because I'm in Florida?
Got it. And I probably asked it both ways several different times. When I pay for the tape, I will send you a copy of it so you can something to go by, and you can critique it and you can help other people with it. And so we ended up proceeding. I did something a little bit different, just because at this point I knew it wasn't going to be in my favor, but I had already pulled when the cop got up on the stand. I did object one time because he said something that didn't occur, and I said objection, and the judge said why, and I said because he's lying, and she said no, you can just re-question him when it's your turn. It's like, okay, fine.
Yeah. Well, did you object to the witness being put on the stand because there was a lack of proof showing that they had personal knowledge of the matters?
I did.
Okay. And what happened with that?
When they called him to the stand, I said she overruled it.
Okay.
Again, didn't even phase her. Yep.
Okay. Did you have any objections?
So I think there's some appealable issues in here.
Well, I would say that's an appealable issue. Now they could argue, and I think I know what you're gonna say, because it's fairly standard. But they could argue, well, he had every opportunity to bring out a lack of personal knowledge on cross. So did that happen on cross? Did they object to a question saying that it requires a legal conclusion and the witness isn't qualified to testify? Did you go through that scenario?
Yes, I also entered a piece of evidence myself. I entered his oath of office, and I tried to go down a line of question if he knew what protect
Paul.
and defend the Constitution meant. And that didn't go very far. I got the prosecutor to object that it was irrelevant.
Yeah, well,
but it was interesting introducing.
Well, it really isn't something that we want to raise, though, Paul. I mean, you know that now. And
what's that?
It's not something we should be.
Now, yeah.
Well, all right. So just so we have this, because we're going to talk about appealable issues. So you asked a police officer, you determined on your own, just because I was physically in Florida, that your laws applied, and I gave you jurisdiction to stop me and ticket me. So you asked him that.
I did. I asked him it in a different way, because the prosecution had entered into evidence their copy of my driving record. And she showed it to me, and again, I didn't know if I was supposed to object. It was my driving record, so it's not like it's like fine. And I showed the police officer, and I asked him, can you please show me where in this evidence that it shows that the laws apply to me?
Okay.
And he was shaking his head no on the stand when I got the objection from the prosecutor.
Okay, well, hold that thought. Now, I've always said we want to object often to pretty much everything, and that for something here, relevance. The only thing that gets that document entered is relevance. It's a very low standard. Oh, I know. I don't understand that, but it's a very low standard. If there's any probability to prove the proposition. Does the driving record prove the proposition that the laws apply because you're physically in Florida, which is the foundation of the prosecution's case? Does that driving record have any tendency to prove that proposition or that claim?
No.
Then it's not relevant. And that's why I would object. Objection, no relevance to the prosecution's claim that just because I'm in Florida, the Constitution and laws apply, giving jurisdiction. Because remember, the cop is testifying that the laws applied and you violated them. And before, we haven't had the displeasure. The thing is, remember, when we say the law, the Constitution, the Florida State Constitution is a law. Okay, so it is a law so it's included in that. That's why I say that. Okay, so to get back, so that's the way how I would object. Okay, so you're going to now you're talking to the police officer and you ask him what facts his decision was based on, that just because you were physically in Florida, the laws apply, and what was the prosecution's objection?
Objection. I can't remember if it was irrelative or, she said basically what you said, that he wasn't qualified. And I asked that the witness basically be disqualified.
But what was the process?
The judge overruled it.
But did the prosecution say objection calls for legal conclusion, the witness is not qualified to testify?
No, they did not exactly say that. I can't remember the exact wording. It was not not an exact phrase match, if you want to say.
Okay.
It was something different, but it was basically meant the same.
It meant the same thing. So they would basically what the objection was the witness wasn't qualified, and the judge sustained it.
Correct.
So what did you do after that? How did you address that nonsense?
I can't remember. I'd have to go back. It didn't last too much longer after that. Though and again, this isn't necessarily relative, but it was kind of interesting and kind of entertaining. The prosecutor, this shows you how much lack of actual real work they do. She probably took 5 minutes on 3 different occasions trying to introduce, going back and trying to the judge kept correcting her, saying, no, you can't, you have not done, you haven't entered and again, I didn't know what to object to and what not to object to because I didn't have enough knowledge myself. But there's 3 separate incidents where she took at least 5 minutes trying to introduce evidence the wrong way. So that was kind of interesting. I did object, saying the prosecution has had 2 months to prepare for this case, Judge. So, but
well,
that's basically it. The one thing that was interesting, she let me do a so-called closing statement. So I didn't know I was going to be able to do that. So I wasn't prepared. I just read basically, and the prosecutor did not like that because it had been so-called ruled on already. So, why don't we just take it? I got it into the record. So,
okay, well, let's just take a couple minutes here and we'll discuss what the purpose is of an opening and closing statement. Especially if the prosecutor is doing their opening statement, you can and should object if they're going, if they're going outside the bounds of a legitimate opening statement. The opening statement is limited to just the facts and the allegations that you're going to prove. That you're going to call so-and-so, they're going to prove this, and they're going to testify to that, and they're going to testify to this. When they go beyond those, go to cousin Vinny, then you know when they go outside the bounds, when they're going to start arguing, well, the witness will testify, objection, witness, just get it, the same thing on close. The closing argument is limited to just the facts that have been proven. And do those facts prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt? Do these facts, if it taken as true, do they prove the proposition? And so here, what I would have done was point out that when I asked for the facts to support the police officer's claim that he made on the stop, there was an objection that was sustained without discussion. That is a classic denial of effective cross-examination, to not allow the witness to testify to the facts regarding a claim or a decision that they made. That is black letter law. That is the denial of effective cross-examination. And that's what the close should be done. So if he or she is talking about something that was not proven through the testimony, for example, that the laws apply and you violated them, it wasn't proven by testimony, then you have to object. It may not change the judge's mind, but you still need to object so that you can raise the issue on appeal. Because the judge should not be if it was fair, the judge would say, well, look, you can't argue on close something that's not in evidence. That's textbook prosecutorial misconduct. I mean, that's the Roberts case that I quote so often. That was a case where the prosecutor made arguments in the close that were not brought out during a trial. That's misconduct. That's called, in my book, it's a felony.
Yeah, I think I did object to somewhere in that closing argument. I can't remember right now though. So I'll have to listen to the audio that I did. But I think that there were several times that several appealable issues during this whole thing. So
I think so.
If I send you the tape, is that something that you could listen to, or
you'd have to give me the cliff notes to go with it? But I would, if you want to pay for a consult, that certainly would help cover the time. You'd have to give me the cliff notes to go with it. But I would, if you want to pay for a consult, that certainly would help cover the time. I would say, just from what you're telling me, if if the recording backs this, which I'm going to take your word on just for